Take me to the place in the middle of the sun. And we'll sing this song, sing it one by one.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Love Tribe.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. We got a great show for you today where we talk to, for the third time?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
third
time.
Dr. Paulette Sherman. And she is a psychologist and relationship expert and the author of the new book, Facebook Dating, From First Date to Soulmate. And we dive into dating. And if you are dating, there's going to be a lot of great stuff for you. But even if you're married in a committed relationship, we talk about how to date your partner better. And a lot of the tools will apply to both of you, whether you are single or married or in between. On your way to being married.
Yeah. And if you are dating and you're currently spending way too much time on Tinder or Plenty of Fish or OkCupid, I don't even know all of them. There's so many of them. Dr. Sherman will talk to you about the new Facebook dating app and why that could be a game changer for your dating experiences.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. A lot better in finding meaningful relationships. And we go over some of the ways that Sarah and I make our dates a little bit better. And you might learn something new about Sarah that I share despite her protests.
My willingness to accept that you exaggerated just a little bit.
A little bit.
But
so now you know.
Ahead of time.
As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in, subscribing to the podcast, telling your friends and family. It really means a lot to us. Thank you so much and enjoy today's show.
Today's show is brought to you by our online course, Spark My Relationship. Create more passion, improve your communication, and build a stronger, more intimate connection with your partner in less than 90 days. We've collaborated with 15 therapists and psychologists to bring you the strategies marriage therapists teach their clients. To unlock a special offer only for I Do Podcast listeners, visit sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. That's sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. Hi, Paulette. Thanks for joining us back on the show for, I think it's the third time now.
Yes, my privilege and my pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
Today, we're going to talk about mindful approaches to dating. And we can talk about this in the context of online dating. If you're single and you're dating, just dating, meeting a stranger at the coffee shop, but also dating your partner. So if you're listening and you're married or you're in a relationship, there's going to be some great tips you're going to give us and our listeners for how we can take these tools and tips and apply them in our partnership on date night. So let's dive in and talk about some of the things we can think about to be more mindful and have a healthier approach to our dating life.
Absolutely. Thank you. I find that as a dating coach for so many years and also couples therapist that we all get triggered in multiple ways. And clearly it's easy to do in marriage as well, but especially with dating when it's strangers, because you're not used to caring about someone, all of a sudden they disappear or you don't know why you've been rejected. So it can be fraught with conflict. And I like to look at relationships for the different books that I've written, like on dating or marriage or relationships, as a transformative experience where we can learn about what we're conscious of ourselves and, what we're unconscious of. And that helps us to transform as people and to love more. And so that's kind of the context with which I chose this Facebook dating book, because I feel like as a platform, it gives you the opportunity to be more mindful about who you're choosing and learning about yourself through the whole process. And I can go into why if you'd like later, but I think that's particularly hard in dating in general. And then online, it's even more difficult because you don't even have a face to the person. You're not even meeting in person at first. So, and in terms of the bridge to marriage, I feel like we also get triggered in marriage. So if we can learn to look at our own stuff and not project it and understand it better and to stay centered and peaceful, then that definitely is going to benefit our marriage, whether it's just in disagreements or whether it's, like you said, we're going to talk about having date night with your partner and doing that mindfully as well.
You just mentioned your new book, and then how that is about, part of it is about the new Facebook dating app. And can you talk a little bit about that? Tell us what it is and why it's different from all the other dating apps out there.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm always getting complaints about online dating. I don't know if you guys have covered that before in your show, but because it's a lot of swiping, it's a lot of nude pictures, people sort of being disrespectful, maybe disappearing on you in a way that they might not do as much in real life, and there's no real context for the person. And so one of the contexts that Facebook dating platform put out there from the ground up was that it was going to be a platform for mindful relationships that are based on consideration rather than impulse. And so there are numerous ways that they built this platform with that in mind. And some of the features that they have that you don't really see on other apps. So for example, they're going to match you based on shared interests, and they know a lot about you, for better or for worse. So they're going to, as part of their secret algorithm, they're going to be able to kind of match you in deeper ways. And you have options. So you can keep things very private, but you can also unlock, let's say, your shared interests or your groups, and you can meet people live. So if you're somebody who has a big interest in being vegan or in saving animals, or I don't know, you're really interested in the cause of like multiple sclerosis or something, you can see who's single in those groups, and you're already starting in a much deeper level in that way. And then in terms of the swiping and things like this, they've arranged it so that if people write things, you can't just swipe over their pictures. You have to actually scroll down and read it. And so it's akin to sending the message from the beginning that like you need to know the whole person. If people are being disrespectful to you, you can block them, you can report it, and things like this. So they've tried to come up with a more community perspective in terms of safety, things like this, which I can go into, so that you're feeling that it's a respectful platform, that it's mindful, that you're looking at the whole person. They have conversation starters so that you're really like trying to go to a deeper level from the beginning. And they also recommend that you're only talking to people within a certain geographical radius. So you're not trying to strike up a hookup situation with someone far away and that kind of thing. So those are just some of the things. And there are a lot of other features as well that we can go into, but that's what sort of promoted to me as a dating coach, something that might be different than what's already out there. And you also have the option eventually to unlock your personal profiles. So then you really get to see someone, even though you're not meeting yet live, in the context of their friends and family and their daily life, which is a feature I think is really neat that they don't have on other platforms.
Sarah and I have been out of the dating game for over 10 years now, and actually never did online dating, but having read up on this new platform, and we both know what Tinder is and how it works in other dating apps, this seems like a much better approach to meeting someone that you're going to have a meaningful relationship with. Not that it can't happen in other ways. And even in real life, look, Sarah and I, we met in a bar on New Year's. Like, that's not like the most highbrow.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Situation or whatever. So I'm not trying to dump on Tinder and other apps, but it seems like their mission of a more mindful approach, it's really going to provide that and hopefully alleviate a lot of the frustration. So I want to ask you, have any of your clients used this and have direct feedback for this, the success or how they like the new platform?
So the issue with any new platform is unfortunately that it takes a while for it to populate. So the potential of this, which made me really excited when I started writing the book before it came out, even in the US, is that they have 200 million singles, I think it is, or whatever. And they, it's free. So a lot of people, even older singles, are already on there. And then it's just a lower barrier for people to join since they're already on it. But to answer your question, people have started getting on it and I was able to see it, but there are not so many great matches yet. Like there are some, but it's going to take a while for people to start matching up and meeting. Although I have heard reports that it launched in, I think it's 20 countries now or something. So it launched before other places, and that there have been some reports of marriages. But I am excited to hear any love stories and matches that come out of it and to see. Because to me, at least theoretically, in terms of how they built it and the features that they have, I feel that it does promote deeper relationships. So that's my answer to your question right now. It's just really in the early stages. It's been a few weeks that it's been out here. So
right. No marriages within a couple weeks.
No, I mean, I feel like people start talking. Sometimes I'm surprised how quickly after like 3 months or something, or 4 months, people are like, they know and they want to start talking about engagement, even though they're taking their time. That's happened to me a few times, but I wouldn't really be happy if in a few weeks people were talking about online, even if it wasn't Facebook dating, But yeah, research does show, I think I mentioned to you guys before, that sometimes that marriages happen more quickly when people meet online and that they're more lasting because there's more information up front. So it'll be interesting to see. And if any platform is rich enough, right, and has enough data science, it would be Facebook dating to really see any trends. So as dating experts, I think we should be excited to see what comes out of that as well, because they've already done some research to say different things like that if you have been engaging on Facebook with somebody for a certain amount of time, then your relationship is likely to last this amount of time and things like that. So that I'm sure they're going to be looking for trends and research to see what they can tell based on the information they glean from this in terms of outcomes.
Let's go back to something you mentioned earlier in the interview, and that is how relationships make us aware of what we're conscious and or unconscious about in ourselves. And this seems like a theme with really any relationship issue we deal with on the show, is that you can't fix something that you're not conscious of. And if you're in a marriage and you're having difficulty, you got to address what it is that's causing you and your partner to have these repeated issues in order to help solve the problem. In the dating realm, this can come up. It can be a beautiful thing that when you're dating, the people you're dating are a reflection back on to you and you see what you need to work on. So how can people think about this that are dating or in a relationship? How can they become more mindful, to become more aware of the things that are unconscious to them that are going to help them find a happier relationship, whether they're in one or trying to find one?
That's a great question. I feel like the only thing that you really can control is yourself. And then, of course, in outer ways, you can choose the best platform for you and one that matches your values, etc. But one way is to notice what's being triggered in you. And so I have over 20 mindfulness exercises as they relate to dating issues. And some examples might be like if you get jealous of somebody, because part of dating is dating multiple people some of the time. And, if your self-esteem goes down or you feel really anxious, there's dating anxiety a lot of times before a date, or you have negative self-talk. So these would be some examples of things that really aren't necessarily about the other person. The other person can mirror them for you or trigger them for you, but they're things that could be really helpful for you to learn about yourself. And if you go into that feeling, I'll use anger, for example, because sometimes there's things that make you angry when you're dating and also in marriage, right, with your partner. And so you could just justify all the terrible things they did and then have it go on a rant about how the whole opposite sex sucks, right? And maybe you shouldn't have gotten married, or maybe you shouldn't even be dating, right? And you project it onto the other person. Or you could use that situation to kind of center, take what I call an inner pause and see where that feeling is in your body, to try to understand it, and then to look at what might be underneath it. What might you really be feeling? And usually it's some call for not feeling loved, and to understand what that is about and what's hurt you. And then to even think about where maybe in childhood you've experienced something similar. And then to see if that applies also to what's going on with your partner or with your date. And then, irregardless of how it turns out, you probably glean some good information about yourself that's helpful going forward. And you can kind of calm yourself down and get into a more centered, loving place again, where you're okay before you respond. And, obviously that pays off in dividends in a marriage, because you're going to see that person again and you want to have positive interactions that move you forward. But in dating, whether or not you date that person again, you're going to be happy with who you are as a date. You're going to be able to recover a lot more quickly. You're going to avoid dating burnout, because research shows that after a month, many daters just give up because they get so upset, like emotionally. So if you can at least control your emotional regulation and be happy and peaceful and know a system to go back to yourself and to learn about yourself, then you're going to progress much more quickly and easily and more successfully in the long run.
One of the things that I've found really helpful to recognize in myself are the stories that I tell myself. Mm-hmm. So I'll get caught in these loops, and you kind of touched on it, that we tell ourselves these stories about our partner, or if you're dating, I'm not good at dating, or I'll never find the right person, whatever. But there's these recurring stories, and it's like our own self-dialogue. And I've just realized how much that shapes my reality. And when I'm happy, it's shaping it, if I'm telling myself a good story. But more impactfully, when I'm upset or frustrated or trying to improve Sarah and I's relationship, I'm telling myself a negative story that often is not the reality. It's not true. It's not what's going on. Can you talk a little bit about this and how we can change these patterns?
Absolutely. So part of mindfulness is both emotions and thoughts, and looking at them and not making them, these are stories, not making them true or who you are. And that's what you're speaking about. So if you can kind of just watch and observe them without taking them too personally, then you can kind of work with them and shift them to something that's healthier. And so an example could be, I often got, with my first book I talked about, I would see a lot women who are 36 and they'd say, no men want to marry someone over 35. So they'd be in the elevator, someone great would be flirting with them, but they'd say, oh, it must be my imagination because I'm 36, so no one's going to want to marry me or would be interested. And so they've stopped themselves inside, right, based on the story that they're living into before they even have a rejection out there. And I often say, don't reject yourself in the process, right? Because what you can control is your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and in your identity description, your stories that you're telling yourself. So if you have to tell yourself a story, it might as well be a positive one that you want to live into, which is really the basis of the law of attraction. But what often happens is we assume the worst and then we trap ourselves before we even deal with what's real. And so one tool I'll tell my couples a lot of times is look at the facts and not the stories that you create about them. So your husband could be late and you've decided it's because he doesn't care about you or doesn't love you. And that makes it 10 times worse. Whereas, maybe the reality was something completely different. And then you're already in a fury. You're upset with yourself and with him before he's even come home. And then it's just not going to go well. Does that make sense? And it's really similar in dating. And I gave you an example of that with the age barrier or belief.
Yes. And I found this to be so valuable, just this recognition. And it's something I'm continuing to try to work on and get better at, in switching those stories, because those stories it's like an automatic response. It's not like I go, what's the story I'm going to tell myself? It's just, it pops up and then the dialogue is running in the head, the movie, my story, my life story. And another example that I love how thinking about this can be valuable is someone cuts you off in traffic. And I know my immediate reaction is like, what a jerk, instead of asking yourself, why am I, or after the fact, like, why am I thinking they're a jerk? And what if that person is on the way to the hospital to see their sick wife, and instead of the story of they're a jerk and they did that, because they're a bad person and they wanted to get at me. And if we can apply that also to our relationships, but it's just a really good framework to work with. And so I just want to maybe touch on this a little bit more, being mindful and recognizing that this is happening. How can we make it last so that it comes easier, that we're telling ourselves a positive story about our relationships?
Let's take a break to talk about today's sponsors.
Today's episode is sponsored by Iconic, where you can shop name brand glasses, contacts, and sunglasses for the best possible price. Iconic seamlessly connects your eyewear, your vision insurance coverage, and your doctor's expertise with their network of over 38,000 eye doctors.
Yeah, Chase and I got 2 pairs of glasses from Iconic, and the process is super cool. They have this try-on tool where you can try on any pair on their website and see how they actually look on your face before you buy them. So no need to go to the stores to try on all the different frames. You can do it right from the comfort of your home. So enjoy the view and visit iconic.com/ido. That's iconic, EYECONIC.com/ido to shop over 60 high quality name brands, including Nike, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and AccuView.
And definitely get glasses, but even if you don't want to, try this tool because it's super cool.
We were like just playing with it for fun.
It looks like you're wearing the glasses
yes.
Through the tool. So check that out and get free shipping and returns, price matching, and complimentary frame adjustment. Plus, save up to $220 when you apply your insurance. If you don't have insurance, use the code IDO to get 10% off your entire order. Iconic is looking out for your eyes. Today's episode is brought to you by Native.
Native creates safe, simple, effective deodorants that smell amazing and actually work, which means when we're in hot and humid Costa Rica, we stay dry and smelling like coconut and vanilla, which is my favorite scent.
Coconut and vanilla is better than my BO.
Yeah. No brainer.
Does not smell like coconut and vanilla.
Gross.
Native's clean and simple ingredients allow you to know exactly what's in your deodorant. And they happen to be ingredients found in nature, such as coconut oil, shea butter for moisturizer, and tapioca starch to absorb wetness. So there are 0 aluminum and parabens added.
Although Native is priced at a slight premium compared to the conventional deodorants, it's totally worth it. Aluminum is in a lot of brands, and we now know that it may be linked to some serious health ramifications. And it's not only us that loves Native. They have over 8,000 5-star reviews.
So for 20% off your first purchase, visit nativedeodorant.com and use promo code IDO during checkout. That's nativedeodorant.com and use promo code IDO at checkout.
It's funny, Chase, because I'm writing another, like I finished the Facebook dating one and my next book is about marriage, sort of similar to Dating from the Inside Out, like a marriage from the inside out. And I feel like we're discussing those chapters right now. But the one thing I was going to add in terms of the relationship piece of what you're saying is that they've actually found in the research that which is a very tough thing to do, but when spouses actually assume a positive story or a positive intention, that those marriages are much more successful and lasting. So I'll give you an example, which I'm not sure even I could do it on my worst day, but they'll say like, if you have a special date at home and the kids are away and you're getting dressed up and your husband's supposed to come home and then he's like an hour too late because he's visiting a friend or his mother, most people would get really upset and then have a confrontation when they come and maybe just give up on the date. But that they're saying those successful couples would actually assume, well, okay, I'm not happy about this, but the truth is that he almost never sees that friend or his mother. And like, I'm sure that it's really like he's not intending to hurt me, that this is actually good for him and then be in a better state when he comes back. So you have that choice. You don't have a choice about what the other person does, but if you are going to create a story, you can create a very compassionate one or one that gives the person the benefit of the doubt. But what we often do is based on past bad experience is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, they always leave that on the floor. They're always late. So that's what they're doing now. And then it almost sets the other person up for failure and for you to be angry before you even know or you've asked like what has happened there. So that's a little bit about what you can do is like choose a more positive story, choose to give the person the benefit of the doubt, or choose to ask and find out what are the facts before you create a story. The other thing you can do is some self-soothing and put yourself into a good place so that you're not sitting there seething and creating a negative story for like 2 hours. Then the momentum is very negative, but you can, do some meditation or watch something funny or try to distract yourself so that or do some mindfulness so that you've kind of come in contact with your feelings, understand how you're feeling, and kind of don't immediately attack or project that onto the other person.
To switch back to dating and online dating, but even in a committed relationship, it seems like we could apply this to rejection, that, they call it ghosting. Like this person just doesn't respond, and we'll probably assume bad intent when, hey, maybe they're rushing to the hospital to see their parent, to use that example again. But what are some other ways that people can deal with rejection when it comes to dating?
So it's true that it's a very good point that they could be going to the hospital. It's another possibility that they are an unhappy person, or just someone who can't deal with confrontation or what have you. But where we really go awry is make it personal. And we say, oh, it must be because they don't care about me, or they found someone better, or things like that. I hear a lot of times. So I think it's very important to have high self-esteem and come back to a centered place no matter what's going on around you, which is a tall order. But it's very important in dating, because these are people that you haven't handpicked, that you have no context for. And some of them may have attachment issues. They may have issues that, have nothing to do with you. I often say that 70% of why you get rejected in dating isn't even personal. It may be that they had a very critical mother. And so unconsciously, that's what they're attracted to. And you're just not critical enough. It's like, even though you're a wonderful person. So, it's actually a misnomer to assign that blame or, to yourself. So I think to be able to be mindful, come back to a centered place, and to move forward knowing that you're worthy and that you're good, and that you have to eyes on your own script, right? You can't write the story for somebody else and what that's about, like you said. So I think that that's a very useful skill to have in dating for sure, which is a lot of ups and downs and unknowns, but even for marriage as well, because there'll be times that your partner may be depressed or lose a job or have substance issues or whatever is happening, right? And there may be deal breakers in that, but if there isn't, then it's very important for you to not go downhill with them, and to be able to have the skill to not personalize it, to put yourself into a good space, to be able to make yourself happy, right? And to be mindful before you just respond, or to respond instead of react. Otherwise, you're both coming from a place where you're unconscious, and it can get very negative very quickly.
You briefly touched on some tools earlier in the interview, but if you could expand a little bit more on maybe some exercises or tools that people can implement on maybe their first date, and then also if a couple is doing date night.
Oh, sure. Okay. So if you have dating anxiety, I think I talked to you guys, I can't remember when I wrote the book of Sacred Baths, but I even have, just touch on that for a second, a bath that you can do. So it's really relaxing. You can have essential oils and detox with bath salt, Epsom salt, and you can just visualize the date going really well. So you're already putting that, to touch on what Chase said, that positive vision or story out there, and starting with the positive energy and self-love, and let go of any negative thoughts that you're kind of putting in there before that's even a reality. So that would be one example of a ritual you could do before a date. You can also, if you're feeling anxious, do a mindfulness meditation like I have in my book, where you kind of see where is the anxiety in my body, and you breathe into that, and you do some deep breathing, and then you say, don't judge any of those feelings, but just let them go, and then say what might be underneath that, and kind of be kind and compassionate with yourself, because what all this really is about is peeling the layers of things that sort of like the noise, and coming back to your calm, wise self, which we all have as our essential self, I feel. And so when you can kind of get back to that still and centered place of love, then you can go into any situation, and it isn't even about the content. You can still address the same issue or meet someone new, but you're not bringing all those layers of baggage and noise and negativity with you. So that's what these things try to do. In terms of how to do that on a date night, you certainly could do either of those things before date night the same exact way. But one thing I would say about a date night that I tell my couples is that it's so easy just because to bring in a lot of business type stuff into date night. And even if you think it's positive things about, your daughter's party coming up, like my daughter has a party in 3 weeks and I haven't had a moment to grab my husband to even plan it, or it's even 2 weeks now. So, it would be very easy if we have this time set aside to just talk about that, to talk about plans, and even if they're positive things. And I tell couples, try not to do that in terms of being mindful, design your date night so that you're going to focus on just what's great about each other, let's say, or doing something new and exciting so that it's almost like before you had kids. And it's not that you're not trying to be in reality, but you just want to really be present with that person and be willing to be surprised and to focus on appreciating them and being happy and that kind of thing. Because there's so few moments otherwise, right? That I don't know how you guys feel, but when you don't have all those kind of layers of reality coming in from the past or from the future. So that's one way to be really mindful, and to do that on a weekly basis, I think pays off in so many ways, the research has shown. In terms of your sex life, in terms of your satisfaction in the relationship, and even in terms of just learning new things about your partner and yourself, and then creating more of a romantic environment.
To add on to that, I feel like whenever Chase and I go into a date night and we have a lot of unfinished stuff to talk about, I feel like it kind of cramps our style, like of really enjoying each other, the best parts of each other, like you mentioned. And so I guess my tip of advice for that would be, to our listeners, would be, if there's something that's kind of harping on the relationship, maybe try and talk about it before so that it's not the center of attention during your date night.
I think that's great. And if you don't have time to talk about it before, you're right, probably the energy might still affect you. So your way is the best. But you could always say, I know that this is pressing. Like I've done that before, and I know we're going to be tempted to talk about this, but let's just try to put it aside because we're not going to have this time again for a while, right? So let's just really try to be present and enjoy whatever we're doing. And then we'll make a time to talk about this separately. So you're kind of getting ahead of that train.
Another thing Sarah and I found really valuable is taking a list of questions. You can find them online, and we've mentioned this before, but like questions to ask your spouse that are different to get the conversation going. And it feels a bit artificial to just have like a list of 30 questions, but it's not. And when you've been with someone for 10 years, like Sarah and I have, you kind of need it. And I learned some new things about Sarah on our last date night, and she's smiling at me now. I don't know if I'll share them with our listeners.
I think it's so cool you're willing to do that, because I love that idea. But I think once I had one of those pink books of questions, because I love that kind of stuff, and I was trying to read it to my husband. Of course, I didn't prepare him, but he was like rolling his eyes at me, like, you don't want to play that game. So I think it's great. You're up for that. And I think that is a wonderful idea, whether you get one of those little books that they sell on Amazon, or look them up online, or even just ask things you're curious about in general, like, about their childhood or their things they're looking forward to. I think that's really so important, because I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but I've seen couples talk about when they're sitting with people they haven't seen for a while, and they've asked their husband a million times about their job or different things. And then all of a sudden he just like opens up and shares things that he would never share with them. And I feel like, number one, they don't ask, but also, you're just so in the same patterns of reacting and responding with each other that often nothing new occurs. So if you can shake it up a little bit and go deeper, or really be interested, then that can shake you out of that pattern.
The questions were really just kind of an icebreaker, because after one question, it kind of naturally led itself into other questions and different conversations, because we were opening new things about each other that we had never talked about before, which is kind of crazy after 10 years that there are still new things that we don't know about each other.
I agree. I mean, it feels like you must know everything, but I bet that there are so many things that you don't even know about yourselves, right? Much less each other. So I think it's always it's wonderful to keep inquiring, because that's when relationships die, kind of, right? When they get really boring, or you become like furniture to each other. So, yeah. And I think that's also part of the potential of affairs too, is like someone makes you feel special again, or is really interested in you, or celebrates your accomplishments, right? So it's very easy. None of us are perfect and we're overwhelmed and stuff, but it's very easy to get complacent and to forget to really see your partner and your singular relationship with them apart from everything else that's going on. And that's the mindfulness piece. So it sounds like you guys really are doing that. It's a wonderful role model for people, that you're actively working on it all the time, it seems like. Yeah.
Well, we can always do more, and it does take work. And I would have never learned that Sarah had lice for 2 years. of her
like
life
the second grade.
as a child. I just learned this like a month ago. I'm sorry,
Maybe
Sarah.
not one to talk about on date night.
I had to share it with our listeners, but I was like, how could I not know that? That's such a big thing. Her and her neighbor, this other girl, were friends, and they were just basically like pass it back and forth.
We were like 10 years old, and we would just share each other's brushes.
You couldn't help it.
I know, we couldn't help it, and we just couldn't get rid of it. It was like our parents, our mothers, like they had to keep us separated for like weeks because of this, because they could not get rid of it.
This is like a big deal, and I never knew this.
Oh, a big deal!
It was really cool, and no judgment. I just look. I'm obviously joking, but in all reality, it did make me feel like closer to Sarah, because I was like, oh, here's this funny childhood story that's kind of like a big thing, and I never knew, and that's kind of a beautiful thing to rediscover your partner. Obviously, it's like
in a weird way.
Yeah, but it could happen another way, and there were other questions. I'm just using that because it's kind of funny, but like, what would you do if you didn't have to work and you could retire tomorrow? And then you really start getting yourself thinking about an answer to that, and then having deeper conversations that don't involve kids, bills, work, these things that tend to happen in long-term relationships.
I love that. I think it makes, the other person feel really valued and heard and growing. And those are the things that really make you want to connect with the other person and see the value they bring. I mean, obviously they bring value on a daily basis too in other ways, but I think that gets lost so often. So that sounds wonderful. Plus, like, the more even though you've known them for X amount of years, like you're saying 10, or maybe knew her dating too, like 13 or something, there was how many years before you even knew her that there's no way you know all those details, right? And those things, at least as a therapist, the things from her childhood or your childhood, really help you to also understand the blocks that someone has, or why they are the way or their values, or why they are the way they are. So it is actually really valuable to go back and learn about those things.
It is. And we could talk about so many things when it comes to dating and your relationship. And we're excited that we were able to dive in a little bit to the new Facebook dating app. And maybe we'll have to check in a year after like thousands of people have been married through the app. But before we wrap up, could you maybe tell our listeners that are dating or trying to date their partner better, are there any lasting comments you want to leave with them as they tackle the dating life? And then we will wrap up and say goodbye.
Sure. So I think, especially when it comes to the Facebook dating platform, that you should look at dating as an inside out process. So overall, to learn what your own blocks are, what the other person's are, and how to love more, and how to know yourself and your triggers, which we spoke about today. And to look at Facebook dating as an opportunity to unlock as much information as you would wish to. So you can go all the way to seeing the person's friends and family and their shared interests, their groups, to meeting people live. So it's very exciting. And if you want to learn more, then they can pick up my book, which is called Facebook Dating from First Date to Soulmate, on Amazon under Paulette Sherman.
Great. And can you remind us your website for our listeners?
Sure. My website is drpaulettesherman.com.
Perfect. And we'll have the links to your website and your book on our website at idopodcast.com, on your show notes page, and in the podcast description. And thank you again for joining us back on the show.
Thank you, guys. It's always fun to speak with you.
Hi, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. As always, all the links are in the show notes page, as well as on the podcast description. And while you're on our website, we encourage you guys to check out our 14-day Happy Couple Challenge. We send you an email for 14 days with simple, doable challenges to help strengthen and improve your relationship. And on our website, we also have a bunch of free resources for your relationship. So we encourage you to check those out. We also have our Love Tribe on Facebook. We encourage you guys to join the tribe and be there for support for each other if you have questions or just need some relationship advice. We are all here for each other. The group has grown to almost 1,000 people, and we love it. So we hope you guys join that. You can go to Facebook, Love Tribe Fam, and you'll find us right there. And if you are interested in learning more about our flagship course, Spark My Relationship, we hope you guys check it out. We have a special offer that is only for podcast listeners. So you can go to sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock, and you can unlock that special offer and learn more. As always, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.